everybody. I am your host, Stocke, and welcome back to Creepy Casino. Tonight, we will be reading... Hold on, I just hit the random pasta button. Oh. Huh. We got a really short one, like 3 paragraphs short. It's called Slideshow. Fingers trembling with excitement, I opened the package. Just as I had hoped, it was the camera I won on eBay. How you can win things on eBay? I guess in an auction, yeah. Sorry, I don't think I've ever used eBay ever, so I wouldn't know. With mild delight, I realized I had received a better deal than I had planned, because the previous owner had left the memory card in the slot. Before sending an email to the seller alerting them of the mistake, I decided to see if anything was on it. Of course you did. Setting the camera on slideshow, I watched as the camera displayed a picture of a shipping label. My confusion turned to horror as the next image was of a person brutally murdered. The rest of the card was alternating pictures of a mailing address followed by a murder scene. The last image was of the shipping label from the box I had just opened. The end. Categories: reality and photography. I am in stunned silence, if you couldn't tell. Shortest pasta I've read, I think ever. 3 paragraphs. Wow, okay. Despite how short it was, I still have to say this wasn't even a break even. We lost at this bet, okay? Because no, it's not scary at all. Sure, maybe there were some grammar mistakes, but very few that really stick out like sore thumbs, unlike most of the Creepy Pasta Wiki. There's no, I don't know, maybe I'm glad there's no image to go along with this. It probably would not have been in good taste. Yeah, no. This was a bad one, but it's very, very short, so you know what? I'm just going to read another random pasta, starting now. Alright. Let's see. Another relatively short one, so perfectly fitting for an episode like this. Our story for tonight is called Limbo. It's even got a picture to go with it. A very generic one, but at least it's a picture. I woke up in a dark forest. I could feel a warm liquid running down the back of my head. I reached my arm around my head only to find out that there was a massive bump on it. Further inspection led me to believe that I had been knocked out for a couple of hours now. I slowly started to lift my head off the cold, hard ground, and I eventually got up. I stumbled my way through the foggy forest, and I eventually came across a silhouette of what appeared to be an old, broken-down house. I contemplated whether I should enter the house and look for help, or if I should just turn around and look somewhere else. Thinking that this might be the only house that I stumble upon, I walked towards the old, crooked home. When I got to the doorstep, I noticed that the door was all boarded up. I tried to grip one of the boards to rip it off, but it didn't budge. Exhausted, I walked around the house hoping to find a back door or even an open window that I could crawl through. The only open window I came upon was on the second floor, and there was no way I was getting up there. I couldn't help but notice that there was a shed behind the house, and that the door wasn't boarded up. I turned the rusty doorknob, and the door gently creaked open. Okay, I'm just thinking, like, instead of knocking on the door, he tries to immediately pull the wooden boards off. And the fact that there are wooden boards at all seem to indicate that the house is probably abandoned, maybe even condemned, and is falling apart. Like, there's no way there's anybody living there that could possibly help him. Except maybe like an old hermit or something, and an old hermit isn't going to help you. Anyway. Laying on the floor, I found an old crowbar which had a thin layer of dust on it. Okay, so this is Gordon Freeman's house, apparently. I walked back to the front of the house and attempted to pry the door open. Event- oh, right, okay. He found the crowbar in the shed. I'm sorry, I thought it was... I thought he creaked open the back door. It's late. I've been recording like 4 episodes in a row at this point. Anyway. Eventually, the door the door opened just enough for me to sliver through the open space. Total darkness surrounded me as I reached for my pocket and pulled out a lighter. I turned on my lighter, and the small orange light made it just bright enough to see. I noticed that all the furniture looked very old and had a lot of dust on it. This house probably hadn't been touched in years, maybe even decades. I scanned the walls of the room to try and find a light switch, only to find nothing. I headed down the hallway on my right, and I found 3 rooms. I slowly entered the first room, and I felt a cold current of air blow past me. The room I was in looked like a girl's room. The walls were a sickening shade of pink, and there were what seemed to be ripped-up dolls and teddy bears littering the wooden floor. On the other side of the room, there was a small wooden desk with what looked like a small red notebook that someone had left open. I walked towards the desk and picked the small notebook up. I flipped through a couple of pages, but it was all written in German. Not sure how you would know that unless you also knew German. I noticed that the farther into the notebook I went, the sloppier and worse the handwriting got. I tried to skip all the way to the end, but all I found were ripped up pages and what looked like bloodstains. A lot of build-up so far, I have to say. There was no doubt that I was genuinely creeped out, so I quickly got out of the room and proceeded to explore the rest of the house. I walked out into the hallway and saw a door on my right. I tried opening the door, but it was locked, so I figured maybe I could kick it down. I took a running start and broke down the door on my first try. Behind it, there was a staircase heading down into the basement. I slowly walked down the stairs, trying to avoid the pieces of glass that littered it. You'd think if you'd just kicked in the door leading to a staircase down to the basement, that you would have gone flying down the stairs instead of walking down carefully. And how did glass get scattered all over that basement staircase anyway? Was the door made of glass? Does it say that? I don't think it did. Oh well. Eventually, I made it to the bottom where it was nearly pitch black. I pulled out my lighter and turned it on again. There was red writing on the wall which read, "Leave now." Suddenly, I heard a loud crash upstairs. I ran quickly upstairs and found the body of a teenage girl lying in the living room I was just in. I stood in front of her, horrified and unable to move. I heard footsteps behind me, and I was confronted by what I could only describe as a shadow man. He looked at me with red, soulless eyes. "What are you doing here?" I fell backwards onto my hands, nearly hitting my head against the wall. The shadow man stood still and looked at me for a couple of seconds. I swiftly got up and started running to the door, almost tripping on the dead girl in the process. I exited the house and started running as fast as I possibly could. I could feel the blood rushing through my whole body. I looked behind me to see if the creature was still chasing me, but as I turned my head to look behind me, I felt something hit me in the back of the head. I woke up in a dark forest. I could feel a warm liquid running down the back of my head. I reached my arm around my head only to find a massive bump there. I slowly got up and started stumbling my way through the foggy forest. I was confronted by an old, broken-down house. I decided to enter the crooked home. The end. Categories: beings. This... Not bad. Definitely not bad, I have to say. It's not great. It was close to being good. Very, very close, I must say. Not once did I ever stop to ask, what the fuck is this protagonist doing? Well, maybe I did, but I think in the only cases where I did stop to question it, it was only because I misread something or failed to process something because of how tired I am. Yeah, this story doesn't seem that bad if I'm honest, but seemed like a lot of build-up for no real payoff. There was a bit of a payoff, but not enough of one, I have to say. And there were definitely some cliches scattered around, I have to say, but cliches aren't always necessarily a bad thing. But maybe I'm just a bit optimistic about that. Would I call this a jackpot at the Creepy Casino? No, but it's definitely on the upper end of mediocre, so I don't know, maybe we earned a bit of money, but not enough to get that new car. Definitely not. So, yeah, this has been Limbo and Slideshow, as I recall. 2-for-1 special. I've been your host, Stocke, and I will see you next time. Thanks for listening, everybody, and if you liked this video, then please do. And if you want to see more like it, you might want to consider subscribing. Good night, everybody.